Hello, everybody. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and this is our weekend show with my co host.
Hello, my name is Ariella or Ari Steinhorn, and I'm a writer, storyteller, former and sometimes current publicist. I work with people to tell sensitive stories about power.
And those stories are incredibly important. We're seeing a lot of those play out right now. I mean, it seemed to me, and I was thinking about this a lot earlier in the week, like your efforts do actually change the world. So,
Thank you. No, I actually have a funny behind the scenes story for you and everybody watching about some of the storytelling efforts. So I on this channel before we've talked about Sarah Wynne Williams, the former Meta employee who came out with a book called Careless People about the culture at Meta and how Mark Zuckerberg was pushing for Facebook to have a presence in China. And she just had, it was a blend of like personal memoir with some company history and secrets. And there's another woman named Kelly Stonelake who sued Meta for discrimination and harassment after she called out that a bunch of like 10-year-olds were running around the virtual world like shouting racist stuff. And so Kelly was telling me that she was talking to a reporter who told her that there's a rumor going around that Sarah Wynne Williams and Kelly Stonelake are being paid for by George Soros. And that it's a part of this broader coordinated campaign to detract from big tech, and that like it's so unfathomable to people that there could just be two separate women who have stories and want to talk about their experiences and break free from the matrix, the corporate matrix. I think people can't think that that is a possibility. So they have to have an explanation, which is this conspiracy theory that it's all funded by George Soros. And it reminded me of a couple of years ago, I worked on a story about Blue Origin and the culture there, which has been in the news because Jeff Bezos, as I'm sure everyone saw, just sent his fiance and a bunch of people up in a rocket. And so a couple of years ago, I worked with a whistleblower who put her name on an essay about the culture at Blue Origin, and the rumor around that one was that this woman Alexandra Abrams, and I were funded by Larry Ellison because it was like too much to believe. It was too much for anyone to believe that it could just be like a couple of independent people telling stories, not necessarily in their financial interest. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting behind the scenes story about storytelling to share.
notable that all of these powerful women in play here are always thought to need to be puppets of a man. That seems like a bit of an issue. I will say about George Soros, though, I have sued his like advocacy slash influence organization, and I'll provide no identifying characteristics about that lawsuit for a variety of reasons. Um, and I can say this: while I don't agree with all the George Soros conspiracy theories, um, I don't agree with them not for lack of effort on behalf of George Soros. It's the incompetence of his organization and the complete lack of discipline or structure or like unifying goals. Like it's not that they're not trying to be this octopus puppeting the world. That is their goal, like almost unabashedly. It's just they're morons. Like they're like choking down hundreds of millions of dollars, often more, and the result is nothing. Just over and over and over again, just nothing. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, it's strange that no one ever comes over here and looks at what you guys don't get done. Like, I was just casually looking at it through like the lens of discovery in a case because they were like essentially arguing like lack of ability or, lack of competence. And it's like, uh, have you guys looked around? Like this is not for such a feared organization. You don't you don't seem to do a lot. So anyways, I digress.
Totally. It's funny. I just made a TikTok about this today, the idea that it's actually usually more about incompetence than it is about some grand plan that these people are puppeteering. And I think we want to believe someone is in control in a weird way. Like, even though we think the plans might be sinister, the idea that someone is actually like steering the ship or like funding things in a way that propels humanity. I think that's why people were drawn to Elon Musk before and still some are, but less and less people by the day are drawn to him because they think that he's like some genius who has the master plan figured out. But it's so true that oftentimes at the end of the day, it's just like, oh, it's incompetence. It's like it's a mistake, and then we build it up in our minds as something else.
That was the thing that differentiated Harvey Weinstein, for me at least, when we handled the cases that involved Harvey Weinstein. The organization he had built was extraordinarily competent. That's the loyalty he engendered, raising up people from some underprivileged neighborhoods, making them, escalating them through the levels of corporate whatever into executive positions and top roles, and the loyalty that bred and the hyper competence he got out of people, and their ability to move heaven and earth to defend him, to hide his misdeeds. When you look at it, you're like, oh, this isn't normal at all. Like, how did this person run an organization tighter than the CIA could? Like that, like really, like you look at the FBI and it's like idiots dancing drunkenly with their guns falling out. And then you look at Harvey Weinstein and it's like, oh, this is a 30-year reign of terror nailed down through the competence of like less than 20 people, right?
That's such a good point, that it's like Harvey Weinstein had a tighter operation than like Pete Hegseth, who's like leaking national security secrets, not leaking, just like openly sharing things on Signal. My favorite news item of the week was that he wants a makeup room and a makeup studio in the Pentagon. So I actually made a makeup tutorial video for him. Which I'll send you the link. It's up on my small YouTube. But yeah, it's so true that there's Weinstein had an operation that like maybe some actual dark ops people should take a page out of.
The last time I had to get makeup, I was on a national news show, and a very, very giant man who had never apparently touched Caucasian skin was like standing over me, manhandling my face, just being like, "You're so shiny," and I was just like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry you've never seen skin this pale before. It's like, I get it, but like, also, don't you do this for a living? Like, have you not? Like, I can't be that special. Like, whatever.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I would imagine they've seen all types of skin. Um, Crazy. Well, let's get into it. So, with the stories for the week. So, this first story, VA asks employees to report anti-Christian discrimination to new task force. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this is happening a lot, or do you think that it's just part of the new administration's goal of basically telegraphing that Christian people are still the majority, and like this is Trump's base? Nothing against Christian people. I'm half Christian, but yeah, I don't know if it's actually that much of a problem.
I don't think it is. I mean, all of the anti-Christian discrimination I actually see is usually tied to brands of Christianity that hold the Sabbath holy, so they can't work Sundays or Saturdays, depending on whichever their Sabbath day is. And that tends to be what you see. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Like, I'm Catholic, and Catholics will call me up and be like, today is a holy day of obligation. I can't possibly go to work. And it's like, Pope says you can, not a thing. Like, get in there. You do have to go to mass, but guess what? You're in luck. Catholic Church provides many options for you, right? So we don't see a ton of this. Sometimes people want to stretch the claims and be like, well, I want to shout at people that they can't get married if they're of the same sex. And I want to do that in the workplace. And so if you fire me for that, that's me exercising my religious beliefs. And it's like, well, no, because your religious belief doesn't require you to shout at people in the workplace. So No. And also that's hateful and disruptive and it harms people. So no, right? So yeah, listen, do I think the anti-Christian discrimination happens? Of course, it definitely happens. It's not a big deal, to your point. And I think it is probably a soundbite. They're trying to get out there and be like, look, we're backing you up. We're taking care of our base, which is, like a third of his base, I think, right? So
Totally. Yeah. I think that they realize who they need to pander to, I guess.
yeah.
But I think,
Listen, I don't think Trump cares about abortion. I think his base does. I think Trump is like probably like, I love abortion. It's been incredible for me. But that being said, he's got people to pander to.
for sure, for sure. And especially like the Department of Veterans Affairs, it's very much like Christian veterans. These are people who have been his base, even though there's some things that he has done that have not been great for veterans, regardless of their religion. But yeah, it just fits with the talking points. And did you see there was I think they hired not a, she's like an HR practitioner who focuses on Christian values in the workplace, whatever that means, which apparently is also, I saw a video about how empathy is now anti-Christian, which like doesn't make sense to me. People are now saying that in churches, and that's become a thing that Elon Musk is saying, and that like it's a weakness, and that empathy is satanic. Very, very strange how it's all getting flipped around.
That's fascinating. I've never heard that. I mean, I'm always viewed as, and I joke around on the channel, I'm Catholic, but I don't love some of, people are like, oh, Jesus was so amazing. I'm like, yeah, endless forgiveness, not the best policy to run a country on. Like that's tough. Because if you live it out to its logical conclusion, no consequences, right? So like I say that but I don't think that's where they're going with no empathy, right?
Yeah, I think that they're trying to like equate empathy with wokeness. I think that's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to say that it's better to like, it's an interesting sort of, because I think the left progressive wing has really adopted the idea of empathy as their thing. And they're trying to now say, oh, we're not woke, we're empathetic. So now the people on the right are trying to meet the people on the left's new messaging about empathy versus wokeness, right? Because it was like wokeness, cancel culture. That didn't work because people felt that that was too, like, that went overboard, right? But then now I think the left is trying to use other phrases that have broader appeal, like empathy. Like I don't think empathy was taboo. So now the right is trying to equate empathy with weakness or wokeness.
That's fascinating. I mean, I don't think the right needs to fight the progressives. The DNC suppresses the progressives for the right, and then the right beats up the DNC in elections. I mean, that it's, I think the progressives would be better suited to going to, as we've seen, they often do beat far right candidates because their messages resonate in a way corporate centrist warhawk messages out of the DNC don't. Like, no, who wants that? I don't know.